guest today from the Minnesota Twins Hall of Fame, from the Somerset High School Hall of Fame, the one and only Greg Gagne, class of 1979. Greg was one of the truly great players in Minnesota Twins history, culminating in 2 World Series triumphs by Minnesota. 1987 over the St. Louis Cardinals and 1991 over the Atlanta Braves. Before I introduce Greg, I would just like to read a brief segment from a book entitled The 1,000 Best Players in the History of Baseball. A page dedicated to Greg says, consistent player who played in over 100 games in each of his 13 seasons with 3 major league clubs, the Twins for 8 years, the Kansas City Royals for 3 years, and the Los Angeles Dodgers for 2 years. The Somerset, Massachusetts native was the glue in the infield that held the Twins championship teams of 87 and 91 together. In 86, Greg set the shortstop record for playing in 47 straight errorless games. He also tied an American League record in 1986, October 4th, hitting 2 inside the park home runs against the Chicago White Sox. He's one of 18 players to have accomplished that in the history of baseball. With that, I welcome Greg to our studios. Great to have you, Greg.
Great to be here. Thanks.
According to the magic board, Greg, we're going to go back to high school, class of 79. And I also want to thank your wife, Michelle, also a class of 79 graduate, for allowing you to be with us today. And of course, father of 3 beautiful children, Zach, Bishop Stang graduate, Lucas, Bishop Thean graduate, and Blair, recent graduate of Bishop Stang, who will be attending UNH this coming fall.
Yep.
So
you got it.
Beautiful family, and of course a great leader, a great dad, and a great professional ball player. Back to Somerset High School, class of 79. Now we have baseball. Your team won the state championship in 1979. Great season for a veteran coach, the late great Jim Sullivan.
Yeah.
Terrific coach.
I believe that our senior year, my junior year, I believe that we were like something like 18-2 or something. We made the states. We were seeded high. We lost the first game. The next year in '79, we ended up being like 10-10, and we were like the last team seeded. They didn't even want to put us in there, and we ended up winning the whole states, which was a lot of fun.
Averaging about 10 runs a game. You people murdered the opposition.
I remember Rick Stafford was more of a football player than a baseball player. He's saying, "What are we doing? It's summertime. Let's lose and get done with this." And we ended up winning the whole thing. So it was just a lot of fun.
Had some of my ice hockey players too from '79. Rick, of course, was really tough two-way player in ice hockey. Ken Cadero played forward, was left wing and center for me. Mike Krawitz, outstanding defenseman. So your class of '79 was terrific. I had many of you fellas in grade 12 modern history, my students, terrific young men. And a lot of times the attendance was a question, but you fellas never missed that class. I don't think I ever had to
write. Because you would have caught us.
I never had to write out a cut slip for any of you fellas back in 1979.
We must have liked you then.
Thank you.
We liked you. We enjoyed your class.
Okay, now we go to professional baseball. This is the Minnesota farm team, the great Toledo Mud Hens.
The Mud Hens.
Yep, and before that, Greg, will you tell us about being drafted by the Yankees and starting in Paintsville, Kentucky?
Yeah.
June 5th, 1979.
That's when I was drafted. The funny thing about that, is that I remember 2 days after we won a state championship, I signed with the Yankees and I was gone. I was out and I went to Paintsville, Kentucky. And I know for all the young kids today, and I think about my children, they go to, to graduate from high school. What are they going to do when they get out of high school? I wanted to go play baseball, but you know, you go through a time where you're just homesick. And I remember crying like a little baby saying, I want to get back home to be with my family, just to be, because it was a new experience for me, and you're out there in the world by myself. And the more time that I was away from them, the homesick left me. But I played from '79 at Paintsville. Played the first year. We won it. We won the league that year. I didn't play much. And then the next year in Greensboro, we won that league. We won it again in Greensboro. The next year. In '82, Fort Lauderdale, I was with the Yankees. That's the year I got traded to the Twins. And then it was a jump up for me. I went to Orlando, which was Double-A. I was going to play all Single-A. And played Double-A in Orlando with the Twins. And the next year I jumped up to Toledo, which was Triple-A. So I went up to I was going to the big leagues a little quicker with the Twins than with the Yankees, because the Yankees would just, pay the money for the big free agents and buy them.
They wanted Roy Smalley from the Twins primarily for hitting, right? Because his defense was suspect.
Yes, I think he was starting to slow down a little bit, and that was one of the things that really bothered me, because when I was traded to the Twins, when I was about to make the big leagues in '85, right before I went down to spring training, the Twins went and bought Smalley again from the Yankees. So, I said, they're paying him $800,000. I'm a rookie to play short. So I said, I'm not even, going to have a chance to play this year. But in '85, I ended up being kind of in and out, splitting time with Smalley, because Frank Viola said, I want Greg at short while I pitch. And I had more of the range. I played more defensive, but he was the better hitter, of course, because he's had all those years, experience.
Now, your first base coach, Wayne Terwilliger,
yeah,
and Roy Smalley Sr. were the double play combination for the Cubs. I saw the Cubs come to Braves Field 1950-51, and the father, Senior Smalley, was erratic at short, big guy, wild throws. Fans had to duck at first base grandstand. But Terwilliger got the break of his life, he thought.
Wayne.
Got traded to the Brooklyn Dodgers, perennial World Series team. The only thing is, had to play behind Jackie Robinson, which meant he wasn't going to play. And Junior Gilliam came up when Jackie moved to third. So Terwilliger then became an instructor, became a coach, instructor, hooked up with the Twins, and did a great job for you fellas as a coach. But it was Roy Smalley's dad and he were the double play combination when I was a kid, 10, 11, 12 years old, going to Braves Field for 50 cents to watch the game.
That's good.
Nobody else went, Greg.
Nice.
You could sit in the dugout. The Braves never drew. Okay, so we go to the Mud Hens, which was a terrific organization. Now you're up to the Twins. A few comments on these.
Yeah, in '80. Well, I had get called up earlier, maybe in '83, and it was like a cup of coffee. Played a week, didn't hit. Then who I was subbing for, he got better and ended up sending me back down. But in '85 was the year where I believe that's '85, '86. But '85, I ended up, like I said, splitting time with Roy Smalley at short. And then the next year, in '86, I was the everyday shortstop under Ray Miller. He let me play every day, and I said, great, let's play. And I wasn't looking over my shoulder or anything. It was my job, and just go out there and relax and play. And that's when I had a pretty
Pitchers were very supportive of your efforts. They definitely wanted you because you had the range and the arm. You had a strong arm, shortstop.
Yeah, I was blessed with a good arm. I used to love going in the hole and kind of stepping on a dime and just firing it to first base. And after a while, all that work that you do, you practice, you know exactly where first base is, and you don't even have to look at it. It's like anything else that you put the time and energy in. The more times you do it, and baseball's very repetitious, it just comes to your second nature. And,
I'd like to ask you about the turf at the Humphrey Dome. True bounces, bad bounces, what type of bounces?
Pretty true. I mean, pretty quick, but true. Like I always believe that, sometimes you can, like in Toronto, we go to Toronto sometime and the ball would hit a seam and it would kind of jump at you differently. But for the most part, on turf, you're going to get the it's going to come quicker to you, but the ball's going to be, if I can say it, just bounce, no tricky hops.
Right.
Where in grass, it's a little slower. If it's wet that day, you've got to charge it. Could be some hard spots in the infield. The ball could just take off. So I thought it was kind of easier playing on turf, but I believe that you can't. If I was played on natural grass, maybe I believe I would get to more baseballs.
Now, Greg, behind us here, if we can just divert for a second, we have your uniform, number 7 in the stripes over my right shoulder.
Right.
And that's a current uniform.
Right.
You wore number 7 when you first broke in. I believe you were 35, then 31. Then when number 7 became available, you wore that for the rest of your career. I believe 87 through 92 with the Twins, 93, 4 and 5 with the Kansas City Royals, 96 and 7 with the Dodgers, but you had to pull a little deal with Bill Ashley of the Dodgers. Could you tell our viewers what that was about in order to get number 7?
Well, when I came over there, he had number 7, and I'm not sure how long Billy was there on the team, if he played there last year with the Dodgers, or this was his first year, but he had number 7. And he was a pretty big guy, and you know, I wasn't going to wrestle him for it. But I just said, you know, usually at that time I've heard that guys, if they want a number that somebody else has, the courtesy is to you know, give them something. And I said, you know, I bought him a suit, and because we would always have to get dressed up on to go on the road. And so instead of him just giving it to me, you know, I ended up having to buy him a suit, and then I got the number. But then after that, I said, gee, I had a good number. I had number 21, which was Roberto Clemente.
Right.
You know, but when I was growing up, I always thought 7, you know, was Rick Burleson, and also Mantle. But I liked it because I used to like, you know, I grew up a Red Sox fan, liking Rick Burleson and Rico. So those were my 2 guys coming up, and also Hank Aaron.
Wow, terrific. Now, I notice you have the Minnesota Twins logo, 50 years. They moved out there 1961 from the nation's capital. They were the Washington Senators. The Griffith family, Clark Griffith was the original owner. His adopted son and nephew, what the hell's his name? Not Clark. What's the young Griffith?
Not Calvin.
Calvin Griffith,
Calvin,
right.
yeah.
He was very conservative financially. So that's the 50th anniversary shirt, which you received in 2010, 2011 type, 50 years, 61.
61 to 2010.
Yeah, 50 years there. Pretty good. That's
which was, you know, that's how old I am today.
Born in
50,
61.
But I was born in 61, so I always
Right.
thought it was kind of neat that I say, you know, in Minnesota, you know, they would put 1961, that they came here to Minnesota, or that's when their team started. So I just always kind of remembered that 1961, that's the year I was born. And so a lot of things kind of coincided.
Fond memories. The odyssey of the uniform. I have the original Twins uniform, the gray one on the road, which goes back to 61 when they were first there. Belonged to Lenny Green, but Lenny had it in spring training, didn't want it. 62, he wanted number 7. So this one was taken out of circulation, given to scouts who went throughout the area to run tryout camps. The Twins came to Somerset in 1966, 7, and 8, and the late, great Jim Sullivan and I were hired to run the drills on field while a head scout surveyed everything in the stands and wrote everything down. It certainly, Coach Sullivan, before he passed away, told me, he said, you know, we ended up with much more than $50 a day. We have at least $1,000 shirts if we put these on the auction and stuff like that, but those memories are priceless. So we keep them. So that's the history, the lineage of these shirts behind us. So Greg in the modern world has number 7 still worn by catcher Joe Mauer. So you'll always see your number every time you put the television on catch the Twins, you'll say, that was my number. Just as well as having it retired, because then you only get a glimpse. And who knows, it may be retired with Mauer in years to come, as the Yankees retired number 8 for Yogi Berra and Bill Dickey, a great catcher. Both wore number 8. And I believe number 10 for the Yankees, Tony Kubek and Phil Rizzuto, both have that number retired for them. So maybe we'll have Joe Mauer and Greg Gagne in years to come. We certainly hope so here at Channel 9. Okay, we have some World Series playoff action. You made the cover of Sports Illustrated. This is 1987, the playoff against the Detroit Tigers. They won the East, Minnesota won the West. Could you tell us a little bit about this series, Darrell Evans sliding in to take you out on the double play?
Yeah, the first thing was probably interesting was Jeff Reardon, who's grew up in New England too. He kind of mentioned, he says, hey, you're going to be on Sports Illustrated. I go, what do you mean I'm going to be? Yeah, my cousin said you're going to be on Sports Illustrated. I said, no way, no way. And so it was pretty amazing when I, come in the next day and there's my picture on Sports Illustrated. I thought that was kind of neat.
Great action shot.
Yeah, it was. In that series, I thought that was my best series. In '87, it was great because I had a man named Don Baylor come over and really helped me with my hitting.
This is Don here. His number's really 18 in this, but the one doesn't appear. He was a designated hitter, I believe, for some of your games.
Right, and he came
Great
over.
hitting instructor.
Oh yeah, he came over and we used to work every day, but he built up my confidence in hitting, and we would spend hours in the cage, or at least an hour before the game in the cage almost every day, just working on my swing. So he gave me a lot of confidence.
I see another Hall of Famer, Kirby Puckett, died very young, number 34.
Kirby, yeah.
And you are to his right, number 7.
Yep, Kirby, he was one of the best players, if not the best player that I ever played with. And he could usually back it up. I remember in Game 6, or he just said, "Jump on, boys," and he went out there and hit the game winner that night. And
that was against the Cardinals in '87.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we have a box score, Game 7, where you beat the Cardinals here. Could you comment on that? That was
on the Mets. Yep, Game 7. That's actually '87 team.
right.
I remember it was just a base loaded. I came up and the place was just going crazy. I couldn't even, the catcher, who was Tony Pena at the time, who used to play for the Red Sox, and I was manager for the Yankees, or a coach for the Yankees. He was trying to talk to me, and he was as close as we are, and I couldn't even understand what he was saying. Because it was so loud. Yeah. And I said, oh, okay, forget it. And anyways, I got back into the box and was bases loaded, and I ended up hitting the ball down the left field line on a full count off of I'm not sure his name, Todd Worrell.
Worrell, yeah.
And the guy at third dove for it, and I just beat it out, and I ended up being the go-ahead run, which later turned out to be the game-winning RBI, because we won 4-2. But that was just a very intense series, very loud, first time, being young, not knowing really what I'm getting myself into here. I think I wasn't smart enough to realize what I was doing at that time, being just 2 years in the league.
Oblivious to the pressure.
There you go. I think that's exactly what it was, because later in '91 I knew a little bit more what to expect. And
we have a '91 box score where you were very prominent. This is Game 1,
I believe, yes.
Against the Atlanta Braves, noted for great pitchers, Smoltz and Glavine.
Yes, they had very good pitching. They said at that time that series was one of the closest, even though this is Game 1. I remember Charlie Leibrandt, he was on the mound. Left-hander. Who was junk pitcher, fastballs, changeup, curveballs, but all junk, basically trying to throw. So I remember the first time up against him, I end up striking out with him. I'm looking for fastball, and he just keeps turning it over with the changeup's away, and I'm like whiffing, missing. I'm like getting frustrated. Coming to dugout, TK says, you got to stay back. You got to, maybe think about going the other way more. I said, okay. So the next time up, I come up with 2 guys on, and I was going to say, okay, I'm going to try to hit the ball not really up the middle. To stay back off of him, I had to hit it between first and second in that hole. That was my thought. And he ended up, and I stayed back, and he ended up trying to sneak a fastball by me, which he didn't throw me the first time. And I was so waiting for that, just being patient, waiting for that junk, that I just reacted to the fastball, and it ended up hitting a 3-run homer, which gave us the 4-0 lead, and we went on to win that 5-2. So that was a big highlight. I remember my dad and my family was in the stands that day, and I remember just, waving to him, saying, "Yeah," I was fired up.
What a feeling!
You know?
And I noticed the pitcher Jack Morris was great. He
Yes.
won 2 games in that World Series of 1991. Rick
Yes.
Aguilera, outstanding relief
Real.
pitcher,
Yeah.
and who else? Well, Bert Blyleven was from the
87, right.
series. I'm just going to throw a few names at you. On the regulars, 87 and 91, first baseman Kent Herbeck. Let's see,
Agile big man, I'll tell you. For first
Powerful
baseman.
hitter.
Yeah, and powerful hitter.
Greg Gagne, both teams. Dan Gladden, the left fielder, played on both World Series teams. Kirby Puckett, center fielder, both World Series teams. And you said there were 2 others in reserve status.
Yeah, Gene Larkin and Al Newman.
Okay. So they were the 6 players who received the 2 rings.
2 rings, I think. Yes, I believe that's true.
Right. And
Which is, you look back now, and as you're getting older, you kind of appreciate, and you kind of look back and say, gee, I guess I was, we were that good, to be able to, win 2 World Series. We must have done something right, and we were good. So.
Well, and we think of fellas who never got in the World Series, never got a ring, and we can just show that to our viewers. Ernie Banks, a great shortstop, most valuable player with the Cubs in 58 and 59, National League star, 500 plus home runs, never got in a World Series, never had a chance to receive a ring such as you received in 87 and 91.
Yeah, and I mean, I was only, really 86 was my first year playing every day. So it was really my second year that I was able to go to a World Series. Like I said, I was oblivious. What do you say?
Well, you were a big factor because against the Tigers, you had 3 home runs, I believe, in the playoff series. You beat them 4 games to 1.
Right. I believe it was. Yeah, I believe I did hit 3
home
or 2
runs.
or 3. But Woodcock, I mean, Bill Madlock, who was used to play for the Pirates, a great hitter. He said that he thought that I should have been the MVP of the '87 playoffs, which was one of my greatest. I mean, that's one of the best things, a compliment that I had while playing. So it meant something. It meant a lot.
He won 2 batting titles, one with Pittsburgh, one with the Cubs.
Yes,
he was definitely a good hitter.
Yes.
Now we go to Kansas City. We say goodbye.
Kansas City.
Minnesota.
Yep.
So it's Kansas City, 93, 94, 95. A very substantial raise. The contract was a good one for you with the Royals. The team was just fair, though.
Yeah. My first year we were pretty good. I think we were just trying to put the pieces together. But we had guys like Wally Joyner, Jose Lean, who used to play Pirates, second baseman, and he was really good. And then we added later. We had Gary Gaetti, who I used to play with, and then we had Brian McRae in center field, and then we had a couple older guys like Ubi Brooks,
son of the manager, Hal McRae.
Ubi Brooks. But we had a good mix. I thought, what really hurt us, and we had good pitching. What really hurt us that year was '94, where we did really well, and then the strike came on, and then we lost the season.
Right, that was tragic for baseball.
Yeah, it was, and it was sad for us because, for us, I mean, Kansas City was one of the reasons why I went there. I felt like I was really wanted, really needed, and they were spending money, which sometimes in baseball nowadays that's what they talk about so often is money, money, money. But they were willing to spend the money, went out and bought some free agents, put a good group of guys together. I thought we had great camaraderie, and then to just lose that season, it was kind of, it was too bad. Right. I thought we could have maybe been back for a World Series again.
The closing 2 years of your career, Los Angeles Dodgers, 1996, 1997.
Yeah, actually, when I was in Kansas City, I loved it in Kansas City. I wanted to really thought about ending my career there, and but I had also, they wanted me to take a pay cut in the next year, and I said I don't know if I can do that. I only have a few more years left. I still want to have the opportunity to go to a World Series, and the Dodgers gave me that opportunity. And so that's when I went out there to 96 and 97. The first year, I believe, we went to the playoffs. And then the second year, we just missed out. But we had a good group of players out there, young players, which I was the old veteran now.
Wow, things changed.
You know, yeah, it was. It was funny. And it was kind of different because, you know, living out there, and my kids were getting bigger. My family was back home. So it was kind of tough for me because in the summer, you know, they'd come out for only a few weeks. And I was saying, gee, I'm playing 20 years professionally. I can't see my wife and my children. And that kind of, I kind of leaning towards retirement after that year. And I did end up retiring in 97. I didn't want to go back out there. Even though the body was getting a little tired, my arm was, I felt like, you know, I wanted to be back with my family. I just really started missing them. Because like you're saying, you get these young kids coming up, and you know, I was just kind of hanging out with certain guys, young guys on the team, but what they were doing is different from what I would rather be doing.
You actually played in pain those years, 96.
Yeah.
Lingering injuries, but you played through the pain.
Yeah, that's one thing.
The old pro.
Yeah, you gotta have to sometimes, but I remember kind of like the last year of my contract, my arm was really starting to bother me. I was taking just Advil every day, and I was saying, gee, I'm sick. How many do I have to take it? I'm tired of this. I'm not doing this no more. I just won't take as many ground balls. And I ended up, you know, getting through that. But yeah, you always got to play with a little pain.
Now here's a great scene here, culminating a great professional career.
Yeah.
Greg Gagne, Twins Hall of Fame, September of the year 2010.
A couple of years ago.
Tom
Yeah.
Kelly was your manager for
Right.
those 2 World Series championships.
Yeah.
And he's giving the speech inducting you into the Twins Hall of Fame. And Brad Radke, a star pitcher with the Twins, is behind you with the hand holding the jacket for you.
Yeah.
And then you're speaking. Could you comment your feelings, your heart and soul in baseball in Minnesota? What was going through your mind at that moment?
Yeah, I guess a lot of things go through your mind, but I guess for me, I was pretty humbled because and thankful. I mean, like you're saying, there's not too many people that go to 1 World Series, never mind 2. To be inducted into the Hall of Fame, to play with really all those all the teammates that I had, and to see what we accomplished, I just felt really blessed and fortunate more than when I was just playing. You know, when you're playing in the moment, you're not as smart, or you're young, you're not, you know, mature enough. At least I wasn't, and you don't really know how fortunate you are. When you get older, you feel more fortunate. And that's what I felt. I felt really blessed and fortunate to be able to play baseball and to not so much to just be in the Hall of Fame, but just to be able to accomplish what I did with a great bunch of guys.
Well, you've been an inspiration to all the youth here in Somerset, all youngsters who put on a baseball uniform and have that goal in mind of someday making the majors. But if not, at least they'll emulate you and enjoy the fun of playing the game. I want to thank you very much for being in studio with us today. Been terrific. So for Greg Gagne and myself, this is Bob Souza saying we'll be rounding third and heading home. Thank you very much,
All right,
Greg.
Bob. Thank
You were
you.
terrific.